Yeah. Good afternoon. Am I online? Somebody, please, and thank you. I don't know what the hell happened there. All right, thank you. Not a good way to start the show. I don't know what happened there. The reason I was actually a couple minutes late with the starting the stream is because I had to shut down my computer and reboot it because the YouTube app was not working. So anyway, good afternoon, everybody. Happy Thursday. I'm glad I'm online now. Even though it's still telling me I'm not online, I'm just going to roll with it since you guys say you can see me. So, yeah. I don't know what the deal is there. Hold on. Let me just let me refresh this real quick because I want to be able to see what's going on. All right, so now I can see myself. Thank you. All right, so anyway, sorry about that. Yeah, so thanks everybody for stopping in. I know it's a 2 o'clock stream again. I'm sorry, my schedule, my wife's out of town. Anyway, lots going on, so I will eventually get back to the 4 o'clock streams, I promise. And plus, tonight I'm going to be doing the Carolina Panthers and Steelers game live, and I think that game starts at 8. And so I should be okay. I think I could get my kids in bed by then. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the game tonight. I want to talk about some of the college games this weekend. I also want to talk about something that somebody's been asking me to talk about for a while, and I just haven't got around to it. And I apologize. I can't remember who it is, but a few weeks ago, somebody left me, one of you left me several comments asking to give my thoughts about the possible playoff expansion. I know that's a very hot topic. I actually did a video on that in the offseason a few months ago and went in depth into what I think they should do as far as that goes. Also want to talk about SEC bias, ACC bias, Notre Dame bias, all these bias words I'm hearing from every other fan base about the College Football Playoff Committee. I'll give you my thoughts on that. And so, yeah, before I get into any of that, let's see who's in the chat here. Oh, and by the way, before I forget, please go ahead and hit the like button now before you forget. It's free. And if you want to support the show, there is a link in the description of this video to my Patreon page. I want to give a special shout out to Billy Dawson and Tiger Nation for being the first two to sign up for that. It takes you 5 minutes to sign up, and you can read about the benefits of being a Patreon member. And, of course, anybody who supports the show is greatly appreciated. Good afternoon, Tiger Nate. Good afternoon, Billy Dawson. There you are, sir. Says, what's going on, Pete? LSU fan, good afternoon to you. Richard Neal, good to see you, sir. Volunteer Roadshow, Catfish. I watched your stream last night with Uncle Lou. That was great. I really wanted to call in, except as I just mentioned a second ago, my wife's gone for a few days on business, and I've got the kids, and I wasn't in a position where I could get on the phone. Unless you wanted to hear a bunch of kids screaming in the background, it wasn't a good look. So anyway, but I enjoyed the show. It was great. Christian Ballard, good afternoon to you, sir. Yeah, I guess so. That's everybody. Looks like it's commented so far. So we'll go ahead and start with the game tonight, and then we'll talk about some college football. So if you go back in the off season, I'm sure some of you, if not all of you, may have already subscribed to the Sports Fury, and if you haven't, you need to go do that. Especially if you like NFL football or NBA basketball, they do obviously football this time of year, and then when the season's over, they do NBA. But a couple of great guys, Josh and Sean, they've had me on their show a couple of times. Well, the first time I was on their show was for the Carolina Panthers season preview prior to the season, where we went through all 16 games. Well, on that video, first of all, I'll give myself a pat on the back because I had them 6-2 after 8 games, and that's where they are right now. They're 6-2. So I was right about that. Now, I got a couple of the games wrong. I had them beating the Redskins. They lost to the Redskins. I had them losing to the Eagles. They beat the Eagles. But anyway, nonetheless, they're 6-2, just like I thought they would be. But when we previewed this game, the game that's happening tonight in Pittsburgh, I told them I picked Carolina to lose that game. But my main reason for that was, well, first of all, Antonio Brown, okay? He got well, I don't know why he didn't get arrested. He should have been arrested, but he got a reckless driving ticket this morning on the way to the facility. And going 100 miles an hour in a 45-mile-an-hour zone. I don't know why in Pennsylvania you don't get arrested for that. If you do that where I live, you get arrested. That's considered a crime. Anyway, I'm getting off track. Antonio Brown, Ben Roethlisberger, and Le'Veon Bell. Well, there isn't no Le'Veon Bell so far this year. You all know the story about Le'Veon Bell. I think he may have reported back. I'm not sure, but I doubt he's playing tonight anyway. Even if he did report back, I don't think he's going to be playing tonight. And of course, Carolina's team, particularly their offense, is much better so far this year than I thought they were going to be. Okay, if you look at Cam Newton's stats, all you Cam Newton haters out there, and there's a lot of them, right? I love Cam Newton. I always have. I mean, I wouldn't trade him for, like I said before, there might be two teams in the NFL, two players that I'd trade him for. Tom Brady's not one of them because he's old. Drew Brees ain't one of them because he's old. Okay, Aaron Rodgers maybe. Who else was the other one that I said I may trade him for? Maybe a Deshaun Watson or a Patrick Mahomes, something like that. But his stats so far this year, his passer rating, his completion percentage, his amount of touchdowns, rushing and passing, all of his stats are up higher than they were the year in 2015 that he won the NFL MVP. Well, there's a lot of reasons for that. One of the reasons is Norv Turner, the first-year offensive coordinator for the Panthers, is a genius, clearly, and he puts Cam Newton in that offense in the right situations to fit his skill set and to be successful. Another big reason for it is the players, in particular Christian McCaffrey, on offense. He was a godsend to that team. They drafted him last year 8th overall. And a lot of people said, oh, he's not worthy of 8th overall. He's a good college player. He won't translate to the NFL. He's not big enough. You know, that same old story we all hear year after year. Especially if you draft a white running back that high. People, don't get that. But the guy can do everything. He's electric. He can run between the tackles. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's a perfect check down for Cam Newton. He's a mismatch nightmare for any linebacker in the NFL because he's so shifty and quick. He's very hard to cover within the 7 or 8 yard range. And so that's the reason you're seeing Cam Newton's completion percentage up so much. He's up at around 68% right now, is because they have to account for Christian McCaffrey, and that opens things up in the passing game down the field. And if there's somebody not open in the deep ball or to Greg Olsen, then he checks it down to McCaffrey. And McCaffrey, when he gets the ball in his hands, is dangerous. So it's a very, very difficult task for any defense in the NFL to try to stop this Carolina offense, especially now they're getting better and better and starting to click. And so I've changed my opinion. Now, look, it's still going to be hard for any team to go into Pittsburgh on a short week, on the road, and beat the Steelers team. The Steelers still have a really good team, particularly on offense. But I think that if anybody can do it, it's going to be Carolina. Also, Pittsburgh's offense, more than any other team in the NFL, they try to fool the defenses. They show as if they're going to be running a passing play, and they run it, and vice versa. And they're very good at fooling defenses. Well, one linebacker group that you're not going to fool in the NFL is Thomas Davis and Luke Kuechly. They are smarter than you, okay? Or at least as smart. So you still may have some success, but you're not fooling Luke Kuechly. You're not fooling Thomas Davis into thinking that you're doing something that you're not. 9 times out of 10, they're going to read that before the play, and they're going to be able to stop it. So I'm picking, listen, no matter who wins tonight, there's not going to be any blowouts. So you're not going to see a 2 or 3 touchdown win by either one of these teams. I think it's going to be one of those games where it's a situation where whoever gets the ball last it wins, something like that. Anyway, I see because the offenses are both so good, I'd say somewhere around the 35 to 31 range, 35 to 33, less than a touchdown, and both teams scoring in the 30s would be my prediction for tonight. But I'm really looking forward to it. It's a huge game for Carolina. We all know it's a huge game for Pittsburgh because of that division they're in. And it's going to be a lot of fun. I haven't done an NFL game live play-by-play and reaction yet, so this will be my first one. And, of course, my buddies Josh and Sean from the Sports Fury will also be doing the game live. They won't be doing it on YouTube. They'll be doing it on Twitch. They do one game a week on Twitch and a couple of games on YouTube. Tonight they're doing it on Twitch. So a big shout-out to them. And I hope everybody here shows up to support me tonight because I'm going to need it. Yeah. Before we get into some college ball here, I'm see what some of you guys are talking about and see if I can answer some questions. Steeler Nation all the way. Okay, yeah, College Football Battle 2 is a Steelers fan. So I hope you show up tonight, sir. That would only make sense. What's up, Delta Charlie? Good afternoon to you, sir. And College Football Battle says, yeah, James Conner's a great player, and he's really proved that Le'Veon Bell is a great player, but it's really more, as I was just saying a minute ago, it's more that system that they run that makes running back successful in that system. So, but he's a great player. Hold on, let me go back up here and see what this says. Christian Ballard says, I'm going to say it. I'm sick of the Iron Bowl being on CBS at 3:30 every year. It hasn't been at night since 2014, which was also the last time it was on ESPN. We need to get more primetime matchup. Well, Christian, you need to talk to your fellow Alabamians over there in that place they call Auburn and tell them to get their crap together and put together a decent team that people want to see at nighttime. If Auburn was a top 10 team, the game probably would be at nighttime this year, but Auburn's terrible. So go ahead and be happy with the 3:30 spot, I guess. Alabama done better when White was there. I don't think done better when he was out. Just my opinion. LSU fan says, Pete, what do you think about Des Bryant signing with the Saints? Well, somebody must have been listening to Pigskin Pete's stream the other day, right? Because I went off about Des Bryant. I said the reason he hasn't had a job up until now is because the guy's an idiot and he's worse than Donald Trump on Twitter. And he tweeted himself right out of a job and he turned down 2 contracts, for low money. Well, so he got backed into a corner, right? He turned down a $4 million 2-year deal, $4 million a year 2-year deal with the Ravens, and then I think he turned down a similar contract from the Browns. It might have only been a 1-year contract. He thought he was worth more money. Well, it turns out, he's got a 1-year deal with the Saints, and they're not paying him that much. He's making the minimum. He's just trying to get his foot in the door. He wants a long-term deal. What do I think about him signing with the Saints? He couldn't have gone to a better team because of their offense. He doesn't have to be the number one guy. Well, he's not going to be the number one guy. He might, at this point, as far as the Saints go, he might be the number 3 guy, right? And the fact that they're going to have to double cover Michael Thomas is going to make it easier for Des Bryant to get some catches. And he's going to a playoff contender, possibly Super Bowl contending team. So it worked out for everybody. The Saints got one more weapon, and Des Bryant is going to the perfect situation with a great quarterback and a team that's contending. So, as a Panthers fan, I don't like it, because we have to play the Saints twice towards the end of the year. And that, like I said before, I don't think Des Bryant is a great receiver. I think he's a really good one, though. And any more firepower on that Saints offense, I don't like. So I don't like it in that respect. What's up, T-Mac Rock? How you doing, sir? So Wake and NC State tonight. Yeah. NC State could probably beat Wake by as much as they want to, because Wake Forest's defense is atrocious. It's one of the worst defenses in the country. And NC State does have, don't be fooled by the NC State Clemson score and say that NC State's terrible. They just ran into a buzzsaw that day playing against an elite team that they were just outmatched. So NC State still has a very good offense, and they will probably rip apart Wake Forest. I don't think it'll be close. Christian Ballard says he knows why Jalen Hurts' stats are bad. Please ask you why. Well, why? I can't wait to hear this. While I'm waiting on an answer, so I want to get into, before I forget again for the 5th time, if you're the person that asked me this several times, let me know because I want to give you credit for it. But anyway, Southern Buck 352, good afternoon to you, sir. Keeps asking me about my thoughts on the playoff expansion, and I keep saying, "Oh, I'll get to it. Yeah, I'll get to your question on the next stream," and that's been like 10 streams ago. So, listen. First of all, I want to say this: I like the playoff structure the way it is now. Okay, I like 4 teams. I'm open to a small expansion. I'm a 6-teamer. If we're going to expand, which it's going to, it's inevitable at some point because of the pressure from everybody, from the fans, from the coaches. I'd like to see it go to 6 teams. I don't think it will go to 6 teams. I think whenever it happens, it will go to at least 8. And God knows, I do not want to see anything over 8. I mean, I don't even want 8, but I mean, that's the total max. Anything over 8, 10, 12, 16 teams, way too many. Okay, listen, who's the number 10 team in the country right now? Well, it's LSU with 2 losses, but let's see, 9 West Virginia, 8 Ohio State. I don't think any 3 of those teams I just named. Of course, this isn't the end of the year rankings, but those 3 teams are not winning the national title this year. They're just not. Ohio State's not winning it for obvious reasons. West Virginia is a great team. They're not good enough to beat Clemson or Alabama or probably even Michigan or probably even Georgia or Oklahoma. So they're not winning it. And we just saw what LSU does when they go up against Alabama. They got goose eggs. So listen, having a 10-team playoff is completely meaningless and pointless. It's a participation trophy, and it'll make for bad games. And I don't think that if you have 2 losses and one of them was 29-0, that you have belong in a playoff. I just don't. Even if that was Clemson's situation, even if Clemson had 2 losses and one of them they got blown out in, I would say Clemson doesn't belong in the playoff. So if you're an LSU fan and that hurts your feelings, I'm sorry. But what do you want to do? Go to the playoff and get blown out again? I mean, come on. I'm sure you don't want to see that. But anyway, so in my scenario, there's a lot of different ways to do this with the 16 playoff, which is what I would advocate for if there was an expansion. Okay. First of all, I was listening to, and I've said this before, I want to do away with divisions. Not conferences, divisions. If you look at the divisions in the Power 5 conferences all over the country, so the Big 12 doesn't have divisions, so there's only 4 conferences that have 2 divisions. So there's 8 divisions in Power 5 football. Only 4 of those divisions are good, and every conference is lopsided. So the SEC West is dominated overall over the East. The ACC Atlantic is dominant overall over the Coastal. The Big Ten East is dominant overall over the Big Ten West. And historically, the at least in recent years, the Pac-12 North is dominant over the Pac-12 South. So there's no need for divisions. We have these stupid teams that we play every single year for no reason. I mean, there really is no reason why you have to play the same teams every year. And then you have one cross-divisional rival that you play every year. For Clemson, it's Georgia Tech. For Georgia, it's Auburn. You know what I'm saying? And then you play one more cross-divisional game that rotates. So in that scenario, Clemson only plays Miami in a regular season game once every 6 years. We only play Virginia Tech once every 6 years. We only play Pittsburgh once every 6 years. Well, there's no reason to have divisions. What you do is you just get rid of the divisions altogether, and you play a fresh schedule every year. You play 9 conference games, 8, whatever, at least 8. I'd advocate for 9. If you have a rivalry in your current division now that you still want to keep that a rivalry and play them every year, fine. But the rest of the games rotate. This way, if you're Clemson, I'm going to use Clemson as an example because I know their divisions off the top of my head better. If I'm Clemson, I'm going to play Miami every 2 or 3 years in the regular season instead of every 6 years. I'm going to play Virginia Tech every 2 or 3 years instead of every 6 years. If we want to say we want to play Florida State every year because it's a rivalry and everyone wants to see that, fine. Pencil that one in as one we play every year, but the rest of them can rotate. Then what you do is you take at the end of the season, you take the 2 teams with the best conference record in that conference, and they play for a conference championship game, similar to what the Big Ten does. The only reason the Big Ten doesn't have divisions is because they only have 10 teams. But whether you have 10 teams, 12 teams, 16 teams, 20 teams, doesn't matter. There's no reason for divisions. I think it will be better for the football fans. it would be refreshing to see, Clemson not have to beat up on Wake Forest and Georgia Tech every year, even though we play Georgia Tech every year. That's our cross-divisional rival for God knows what reason. I hate playing Georgia Tech, and it's not because I'm scared of getting beat. It's because it's boring. So then what you do is once you establish who your conference winners are, there's a couple of different ways you can do who goes to the playoffs in a 6-team scenario. You can do it the way they do it now and say the selection committee picks the top 6 teams in the country, and so nothing would change in that respect. You could do the 5 Power 5 conference champions automatically get a bid into the playoff, and then you have one at-large team. You could do the 5 Power 5 conference champions get into the playoff automatically, and you get an automatic bid for the best group of 5 team, which would put UCF in there. So there's many different ways you can do it with 6 teams. And in a 6-team scenario, you could give the first the 2 highest ranked teams in the country. For example, this year would be Alabama and Clemson would get a first round bye. You'd have a first round of a playoffs, and then it would whittle it down to 4, and then you'd have a similar situation to what we have now. Well, Pete, that would make the season too long. You're adding another game for certain teams. Get rid of one of the games. We'll have an 11-game regular season, and Clemson will forfeit their game every year against Furman. Or Georgia will forfeit their meaningless game every year against an Austin Peay. That doesn't matter. You could do the same thing with an 8-team playoff. You could do the 5 Power 5 conference champions and 3 at large, 5 Power 5 conferences, 2 at large, and 1 group of 5. But there's many different ways you can do it. I like the 6-team. I like the 4-team, but if it's going to expand, I like the 6-team. I really don't want to go to 8, but I think 8 is what's going to happen. For anybody who wants 16, it's because you're a fan of a bad team, and that's the only way you're ever going to get into the playoff is if there's 16. So it will make for bad football. Can you imagine who's the 16th team in the country right now? Boston College, right? Another 17. Who's 16? So that means Alabama would play whoever's at number 16 right now. They would get murdered. It wouldn't be a good game. What's up, NASA CGI Snakes? Good afternoon to you, sir. Christian Bauer says you don't have to win your conference to get into the playoff, and even if doesn't always make sense to put only conference champs in. Well, I don't agree or disagree with that. I'm just going through possible scenarios of ways that you could, if there's an expansion. You don't have to have automatic bids. Like I said, whether it's 6 or 8 teams, you could still do it the same way we do it now, and just have the committee pick the best 6 teams in the country the way we do it now, and it doesn't matter whether they're a conference champ or not. I'm just giving different ideas. Clemson is playing Pitt every next year in the regular season. Yes, they're playing them next year in the regular season, and then we won't play them again until 2025 because of the stupid divisions that make no sense, that are meaningless and pointless. So the Big Ten has 14 members. Yeah, the ACC has 14. The SEC has 14. So, yeah. Not throwing last year's Bama under the bus, it would make more rankings more clear and consistent. I want at least, Richard Neal says he wants at least one group of 5. I mean, be careful what you wish for. I mean, the chances, I'm not against one, if you have an expansion, letting one group of 5 team get in there, but it still seems to me like a bit of a handout. Because just because they're the best group of 5 team doesn't necessarily mean they're one of the best 8 teams or 6 teams or 4 teams in the country. It just doesn't mean that. And I think more, if that did happen, what you would see is that 9 out of 10 years, that group of 5 team would be knocked out in the first round by the rest of the Power 5 teams. Because whether anybody wants to admit it, it is what it is. There's a reason they're Power 5 teams and they're group of 5 teams. There's a difference in talent. There's a difference in recruiting. There just is. That doesn't mean that UCF can't beat a Power 5 team once or twice a year. But if UCF ran through any schedule in America, Pac-12, Big 12, ACC, whatever, I mean, they would be a 6-6 football team right now, at best. They can't. That it's one thing to do it once or twice a year. It's a whole other thing to do it every single week. What about out west, Pete? Boise State, Fresno State, and the Pac-12. You're a Boise State fan. Yeah. Well, my answer to that is join a Power 5 conference, Boise State. And then you don't have to worry about whether or not you're going to get left out if you're undefeated for the season. Listen, people, this UCF thing that's happening now with everybody split on whether or UCF should be allowed in the playoff, whether they've won 20 straight games, they beat Auburn, blah blah blah. This has happened before in recent history. So anybody who's a Big 12 fan on here will remember this. So when Nebraska and some of these other teams left the Big 12 and went to the Big 10 or wherever they went. And that's how we ended up with only 10 teams in the Big 12. Anyway, they at one point they only had 8 in the Big 12. And they expanded. TCU was the UCF of yesteryear. TCU was an undefeated group of 5 team that was blowing everybody out, and everybody's like, oh, they could beat anybody in the country. They finally got let into the Big 12, and they went from 12-0 every year or 11-1 every year and beating the crap out of everybody to being a 6-6 team for the first 2 seasons. And that's exactly what happens when you go from a Group of 5 schedule to a Power 5 schedule. The same thing would happen with UCF. The same thing would happen with the Boise State from the early 2000s. It is what it is. But the good thing, if you're a UCF fan or a Boise fan, you make that transition into a Power 5 conference, and within a couple of years, because you have a great fan base and because you have, I'm assuming, an administration and an athletic department there that's willing to invest in the football program, within a year or two, you can be in contention in your conference. But it's not going to happen. UCF doesn't go to the ACC next year, and all of a sudden they're playing for ACC titles. It's not happening. They'd be 6-6 in the ACC. They'd probably be 4-8 in the SEC. It's just the way it is. What's up, John Neal? How you doing, sir? Tiger Nate says, hey, Pete, I think people should win their conference to get in, because if you're one of the best in the country, then you should improve yourself by winning your conference. Yeah, I don't know. We saw that Alabama was most likely the best team in the country last year, right? And they didn't win their conference, so the hell they didn't even win their division. That's a tough one. Again, I like the way it is now. I know people hate the playoff committee. They think that they're biased, and that will transition into that, because that's another thing I want to talk about today. Because if you go on, I'm not going to name any names. If you go on other YouTubers' channels, several of them, not just one, so I'm not picking out anybody. You'll hear Big 12 fans saying there's an SEC bias. You'll hear SEC fans saying that there's an ACC bias in the selection committee, which blows my mind. Since when has there ever been an ACC bias about anything? Anybody ever does is say how much the ACC sucks. Why would there be a bias to make them look better? It doesn't make any sense. There's people saying there's a Notre Dame bias. There's all these conspiracy theories about these 13 people are getting together and ranking these teams to benefit one way or another team that's ancillary and not even involved in the they're saying that they're propping up Syracuse because the game coming up with Notre Dame. No, listen, Syracuse is a 6-2 football team who one of their losses is to Clemson, and they played them tough at home. All right, so that's why Syracuse is ranked number 13. And meanwhile, you have a Washington State team who's got one loss. They're ranked, what are they? Ranked like number 8? Listen, Washington State is not a top 10 football team. They get waxed by anybody in that top 10 right now. They probably even lose to Syracuse. Washington State has one loss, and it's to a bad Southern California team. And the rest of the teams that they beat aren't good. They haven't beat a single team that doesn't have at least 3 losses right now. So most of them have more than that. So is there a Washington State bias? Is there a Pac-12 bias? No, there's not. I don't believe in the ACC bias. I don't believe in the SEC bias even. I think that these 13 people, believe it or not, actually think that they're picking in the right, correct order every week. Now, you might not agree with their opinion on who the best number one team or 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever team is, but that doesn't mean that they're being biased just because you don't agree with it. And furthermore, there's not one single person picking these positions. Everybody gets their vote and they average them out, and that spits out the ranking. So there's not one person that's influencing people. And this a couple of weeks ago, you heard Joel Klatt screaming and crying about Frank Beamer somehow the Tony Soprano of the football committee, and he influencing everybody around to prop up the ACC for some ungodly reason that doesn't make any sense. And he has no proof to even back that up. He's just making a crazy statement. Why would anybody be intimidated by Frank Beamer? The guy's 100 years old. He's got something growing out of the side of his head that's the size of a football. But somehow he's pulling the strings. Is he going to put him at the bottom of a river if they don't rank Boston College at 17? Come on, man. It's stupid. It's stupid talk, and I can't believe these people get paid to say crap like that. Listen, if you don't like where the rankings are, then don't lose games to Florida and don't get blown out by Alabama. If you're Oklahoma, don't get beat by Texas, who's got 3 losses now, and expect to be in the top 4. Sorry, don't do it. And then, Joel Klatt, this guy. Every week changes his tune. Every week he's got a different opinion and contradicts himself. 3 weeks ago, he was saying that Notre Dame was clearly a better team than Clemson. And if it came down to those two, then he'd put Notre Dame in over Clemson in the top 4 at the end of the year. If it came down to that 4th spot for them fighting for it. Now he's saying Clemson's the only team in America that has a chance to beat Alabama. Last week it was Clemson and Oklahoma were the only 2 teams. Now it's just Clemson because you want to know why? Because Joel Klatt started his own statistics algorithm thing on a computer. And everything that he talks about comes from the Joel Klatt school of statistics out of his computer. He's figured out some formula because he's a friggin' genius. If Joel Klatt is such a statistic genius, why isn't he patenting this, and why aren't they using it for the playoff system? He puts in numbers, plus and minus numbers, and they spit out this number. And whatever that number says is what is gospel, because Joel Klatt made it up. Because he's a freaking genius. Next week it'll be something different. Next week it'll be who knows? Next week Ohio State's winning the national title because Joel Klatt put the statistics in the game from when they play Michigan State this week, and it says that they're going to beat Alabama somehow. Guy's an idiot. Who's going to the game? What's up, Hunter Hannah? Good afternoon to you. Who's going to the game this week? I'm sorry, I can't scroll back up anymore. Who's going to the Boston College game? Whoever you are, have fun. Tiger Nate, you're lucky, sir. Tiger Nate, you go to a lot of the games. You've been to 3 or 4 already this year, haven't you? And you're flying to Boston? That's cool. You are a true Tiger fan, my friend. Apparently, Joel Klatt said Clemson could beat Bama. What he said was that, according to his little computer program, the Joel Klatt School of Statistics, is that Clemson has the best chance. So, according to him, Alabama would be a 3-point favorite over Clemson. According to Joel Klatt, not according to Las Vegas. That's 2 different things. Las Vegas right now says that Alabama, if they play this weekend, that Alabama will be a touchdown favorite over Clemson. Okay, but Joel Klatt, because he's smarter than Vegas and he's smarter than everybody else in the world, and he's got his own computer program that he made up when he was drunk one night, probably, says that Clemson would lose by 3 points. He says that Notre Dame would lose by 17. No, I'm sorry. He says that Notre Dame would lose by 21. He says that Michigan would lose by 17 and Oklahoma would lose by 16, but Clemson would only lose by 3. Now, that's this week, because once he puts the statistics in from this week's games into his little Joel Klatt computer system, he'll have a different answer for you next week, because that's what Joel Klatt does. He's a flip-flopper of epic proportions. Hunter Hanna says, my grandpa hasn't missed a home Clemson game since 1973. Wow. It even went to 2 games in Tokyo several years ago. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool that he hasn't missed a home game from since 1973. Richard Neal says, the Klatt algorithm is 0 plus 0 equals 0. Yes, exactly. I see everybody agreeing with me about Joel Klatt being a fraud. I used to go on this, he's on Colin Cowherd's show once a week to talk about college football. I still watch it. I used to go on there and comment. Well, I'm not doing that no more. I made that mistake. There are people out there that love Joel Klatt so much that they will go to the ends of the earth to defend everything he says. They really think, and no, they don't just think it, they say it. Joel Klatt's the GOAT. He is the greatest. He's smarter than everybody. He should be the one. He should be the dictator of the college football playoff committee. 13 people? We don't need 13 people. We only need 1. Put Joel Klatt in a room with a computer, and he will pick the 2 best teams in the country because he's smarter than everybody else in the country. He's got a bunch of damn, I don't know what he's feeding these people that think that. But he's got some serious hardcore fans that will. I can't comment because after I make a single comment refuting anything Joel Klatt says, my phone and computer blow up with notifications for the next 24 hours, one after another, of these people telling me how much I suck and how stupid I am, and that Joel Klatt's a genius. So I don't comment anymore for that reason. Yeah. Anyway, now that I got that out of my system, anytime somebody brings up Joel Klatt, I lose my friggin' mind. See you later, NASA CGI Snakes. I got to go have a great day. Yeah, you have a great day too, sir. Now I forgot what else I was going to talk about. Yeah. I have the memory of a cockroach. If I don't write stuff down, my long-term memory is amazing. I mean, I can remember, something when I was 3 years old like it was yesterday. But don't ask me what I did 10 minutes ago. I couldn't tell you. I think I had a little bit too much fun in my 20s, if you know what I'm saying. Completely killed my short-term memory. Anyway, we could talk about some of these games this week if you guys want to. There's really not a lot of really good games on it. It's kind of a disappointing week. I mean, listen, I'm biased. I think that the Clemson and Boston College game's intriguing because Clemson's playing in it. I mean, I think every Clemson game's intriguing because I'm a Clemson, fanatic. But that's the best game of the week. That says a lot because, it's a 20 and a half point spread there in Vegas. Virginia Tech and Pitt is interesting only for the fact that Pitt really looks like the best team in the the ACC Coastal Division, which is terrible for the most part. We might see a 3-loss team win that division, and Miami's been a massive disappointment. Obviously, Virginia Tech's a massive disappointment. Duke is okay, but they have a couple of losses that they shouldn't have lost. Pitt hasn't won it yet, but they're on the verge of winning that and most likely playing Clemson. So I'll be keeping an eye on that just to see. Let's see how good Pitt really is. Pitt started out the year very slow. I mean, they didn't Pitt lose to UCF early in the year, and then they got blown out by Penn State. The first 3 weeks were really bad for Pitt, but since then they've been winning and winning convincingly against some pretty decent teams. So I'm just interested to see how Pitt looks against a very bipolar, wishy-washy Virginia Tech team. See if they can pull that thing out. I think they will, but that's just me. Hold on. See what you guys are saying here. I missed something there. Paul Feinbaum has said some interesting stuff lately about Bama. I love that guy so much. He is the best. Yeah. I mean, he's definitely a SEC homer. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to dispute that. I mean, I don't think he really tries to hide it. He may try to pretend like he's not, but he really is. But one thing that Paul Feinbaum said that I loved is a few weeks ago I was watching, and a guy called in from Columbia, South Carolina, so you can already imagine who he was a fan of, right? He was a Gamecock fan. And he asked Paul Feinbaum, he said, Paul, what are your feelings on, because I hear this all the time. If Clemson were in the SEC, they'd be 8-4. I mean, what's his name? The big roundhead fella, Carolina Jackpot. He always says stuff like that. Oh, if Clemson was in the SEC, they'd be 8-4. If South Carolina was in the ACC, they'd be 11-1. No, you wouldn't. Stop it. South Carolina would be the middle of the road ACC team right now. Period. I mean, it is what it is. But anyway, the guy asked him. He said, Paul, if Clemson were in the SEC, how do you think they would stack up? Right now. I mean, where would they be in that pecking order? And Paul Feinbaum said, They'd have the same. They'd be 11-1 like they are now, or 12-0, especially if they were in the East. They're the second best team in the country, behind Alabama. They'd be the second best team in the SEC right now. And so, even Paul Feinbaum, as much of an SEC homer as he is, realizes that if you're a great team, it doesn't matter what conference you're in. A great team's a great team's a great team. It is what it is. So I like that he said that. But a lot of times he says stuff. I mean, there's certain teams. He lets that certain fan bases that get on his nerves. He'll let that affect his judgment a little bit. He really doesn't like Michigan fans. I think he like that, and Ohio State fans too. I think he lets that affect his judgment when he's trying to be unbiased and give his opinion. I don't know how he feels about Auburn fans. I mean, since he's an Alabama guy mainly. But Clemson versus Pittsburgh for the ACC title game. Yeah, he's definitely an Alabama homer. 81 Clemson Tiger 16 says, "Wait, Pete, I'm from Columbia." Yeah, well, you're a Clemson fan. This guy that called in wasn't. That's got to be tough being a Clemson fan in Columbia, sir. Really tough. I hope we don't have to drive by that trailer park football stadium every day and see that thing, the upside-down cockroach. That would put me in a bad mood. I had to look at that thing every day. Bill Berry says, "Hey, Pete, old man online." Who's the old man? You? Well, welcome, old man. There's no age discrimination here on the Pigskin Pete YouTube channel. You could be 100 if you want to. I like you all the same. You're good people just for being here. Every single one of you is amazing and fantastic. Otherwise, you would not be here. You already know that. You got the tattoo to prove your loyalty. What's your tattoo of? John Neal, good afternoon to you, sir. Says, "Hey, Pete, is Trevor Lawrence doing good?" Yes, he's doing great. And he's making everybody from earlier in the year who was questioning the decision that Dabo Swinney made about making that quarterback change. I mean, all we heard from well, not everybody, but a lot of people, oh, he's making a huge mistake. He should have let Kelly Bryant remain the starter. Now, what happens if he gets hurt? Or what happens if Trevor loses a game because he's inexperienced and now Kelly Bryant's gone? Well, listen, have you guys seen the offense last year versus this year, or the first 4 games of the year versus the the last 6, it's not even close. And Trevor Lawrence is the reason. We last year we still had a great running game with Kelly Bryant and with Etienne and with Choice and Feaster, the same backs we have now. But every team just loaded the box. There was no threat, no real threat anyways, of Kelly Bryant stretching the field on a regular basis. Well, once Trevor Lawrence comes in there, these defenses are playing completely different. They can't load the box. If they load the box, Trevor Lawrence is just going to take the top off. And if you don't load the box, then we just run it down your throat. Listen, Clemson leads the country right now in rushing offense, the entire country, and he's the reason. I mean, the backs are the reason too, but Trevor Lawrence is the reason for that because they have to respect his arm. So to answer your question, Trevor is amazing, and I told you guys before they made this quarterback change after week 4. I was saying this after week 2, I'd seen enough. Now, before the season started, I was on the Kelly Bryant train. I'm saying, listen, he's got the experience. We hadn't seen Trevor Lawrence yet. He's a true freshman. I don't care how talented his arm is. He's still young, blah, blah, blah. Kelly Bryant's played in big games. He's won a lot of games. He's a great player. But after 2 weeks of from what I saw watching the games, I knew. I said, look, we're not winning. We're not getting past the. First of all, we might at this point. I'm thinking we might not even win the ACC. But even if we win the ACC like we should with Kelly Bryant, our chances of winning in the playoffs are 0 without being able to pass the ball. And so I was ready for the change then. They made it after week 4, not week 2. Whatever. I'm still glad they made the change. And I think that right now it's looking like a great decision. John Neal, you haven't seen a Clemson game yet? John Neal says he needs to watch Clemson. Yeah. Clemson is playing on ABC, I think. Yeah, what's up, Prince 6'1"? Good afternoon, sir. How you doing? Yeah. Yeah, everybody, anybody who's just now stopping in who was not here for the first couple of minutes of the stream, I'll go ahead and give you a reminder that I will be doing a live stream tonight for the Carolina Panthers versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know Prince is a Panthers fan, so hopefully he shows up if he's not busy. And so everybody come and support me on that. It comes on at I think kickoff's probably like 8:15, but I'm going to start the stream at 8 o'clock sharp, I think. So that'll be a lot of fun. Also, anybody who's just now stopping in, don't forget to hit the like button and share it, Twitter, Facebook, whatever it is you share it on. And if you're not subscribed, I don't know what you're doing, go ahead and do that too. I mean, that goes without saying. You thought the game was tomorrow. What game was tomorrow? Yeah, no, the Panthers game is tonight, Thursday Night Football, and if that's the game you're talking about. Yes, Christian Ballard, you'll be happy to know, very happy to know, sir, I will be streaming the Alabama and Mississippi State game on Saturday. Isn't it at 3:30? Yes, sir, I will. You're lucky that it's not on the same time as the Clemson game. The Clemson game is at night, Saturday night, I think, 7:30. So, yes, I will be doing – I haven't done an Alabama game yet because it's either they've been on at the same time as Clemson or it just hasn't worked out schedule as far as my family goes. So, I'm glad I'm able to do one. Now, I think it's sort of a mismatch. Now, Mississippi State does have a really good defense, especially the front seven. Their front seven's as good as LSU's. Their cornerbacks and safeties, they're not as good as LSU's. That's the one big difference between those two defenses. But Mississippi State does have a better offense than LSU, which isn't hard. Let's be honest here. I mean, LSU doesn't have an offense. It's been missing since the first Obama administration. But anyways, Alabama is still 24.5-point favorite, and I did pick Alabama to cover that. This game, where is this game? This game's in Starkville, I think. I don't think that matters. But, yes, anyway, I will be doing that game. I went through these games last night and tried to see if there's anyone that would possibly be better that's not on at the same time as Clemson, and most of these just aren't good games. I mean, They're just not. So that's really the best game probably of the day. Now, Georgia and Auburn. What time does Georgia and Auburn come on? But here's the thing. I've done 2 Auburn games and 3 Georgia games this year. So, and that's not me wanting to do Georgia games. It's just Georgia's played in a couple of big games, and so has Auburn. So that's the reason I did them. It just worked out that way. But anyway, what time does the Georgia-Auburn game come on? Yeah, Christian, you can here, Christian, you can sit down with your parents, right? You got an iPhone or an Android, I'm assuming. I'm gonna help you out here. We can do this, sir. We're gonna figure this thing out together. Okay? Here's what you do: you get your iPhone or your Android or whatever your smartphone is. You sit down with your parents. You turn on the Pigskin Pete live stream, and you just put it on mute. And this way you can still read. You might not be able to hear me, but you can watch the game. You won't be disturbing your parents with my commentary. But you can read the comments and at least participate in the comments. Win-win-win situation for everybody involved. And then you can go back and watch the replay later and actually hear what comes out of my idiotic mouth for 3 hours straight. So that's how we'll do it, sir. Told you we'd figure it out. Not hard. Shoot. So the Georgia Southern Buck. By the way, good afternoon to you, sir. Says that the Georgia game comes on at 7. Okay, so I'll be flipping back and forth between the Georgia game and the Clemson game. Obviously, the vast majority of my attention is going to be on the Clemson game, but I'll flip over to check the Georgia game. And I mean, I don't think that game's going to be close. Do you? I mean, I know I got a couple of Georgia fans on here. Anybody think that there's even a chance that Auburn beats Georgia? I don't think so. The game's in Athens too, right? Yeah, sorry. Auburn's just falling apart. They're no good. Maybe next year, though. Maybe they'll get Kelly Bryant and be better next year. Who knows? He did visit there. Visited there last week. He's visiting Oklahoma this week, I think. He's visited a bunch of schools under the radar. He's already visited Oklahoma, I think, Auburn, North Carolina, Arkansas. He's scheduled to visit Florida either this week or next week. So it looks to me as if he's more than likely going to go to an SEC school. He's visiting mostly SEC schools so far. He's visiting Mississippi State, and that makes a lot of sense. Richard Neal, I never even thought about that one. That makes a lot of sense because I mean, he basically, he's as good a runner as Nick Fitzgerald, right? He would fit in that offense good, is what I'm trying to say here. And I think he's a better passer than Fitzgerald. So he's not quite as big as Fitzgerald, but Fitzgerald's huge, isn't he? I mean, isn't he like 6'6"? He's a huge guy. But yeah, so I think he would be a good fit there as far as his style of play. Yeah. Lee Smith says Auburn may beat Georgia. Go ahead and give me your reasoning for that, sir. I mean, if you're trolling, that's a bad troll job. If you're serious, then I have no idea what football you've been watching. I mean, not only is Auburn not good, but I mean, historically against Georgia in recent years, aren't they? I mean, doesn't Georgia win that game like 8 times out of 10? Yeah. Skip down 2 lines. No, I mean, what is this? Oh, basketball. Okay. All right, this stream is taking a massive dive very quickly. It's gone from football talk to complete and utter chaos and trolling. Yes, Pete, there was an Auburn winning last year back in 2013. Between those, I think it was all Georgia. Yeah, I realized they beat them last year in Auburn, but how about this stat? This is a more important stat. Since, what is it, 2018? I don't know what year it is anymore. I almost forgot. So since 2008, we'll go back 10 years. Well, they play home and home every year, right? So that would make 4 Georgia, 4 games in Athens, 4 games in Auburn. How many of those games has Auburn won in Athens? And we're going back far enough to say, even whenever Auburn was a national title contender and Georgia wasn't, I bet Georgia still had a winning record in Athens against them in those years, didn't they? There you go. Georgia 10-3 against Auburn. What's up, Nick Cheskov? Well, I don't know how to. I mean, I don't know how to pronounce your last name, and I don't want to butcher it. So, but anyways, good afternoon. Welcome to the stream. I'm sure if you're here, you're amazing and fantastic. Otherwise, you would not be here. And so you are here. So you are. Yeah. All right. All right. So that's it, guys. It's been an hour, and I gotta go. I got a couple of things I gotta do. But check back in tonight. Be here or be square for Thursday night football. Carolina Panthers versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. I want to thank everybody for stopping in today. Thank all my moderators. Thank all the people that normally show up. Thank all the people that just have found the channel. If you're new here, please hit the subscribe button and the like button. I upload meaningless and pointless college football videos every single week, all year long. I also do a live play-by-play and reaction video for a primetime college football game. This weekend, I will be doing Alabama versus Mississippi State at 3:30 p.m., and I'm even doing an NFL game this week for my Carolina Panthers, Thursday night football in primetime versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you want to support the show, go to the link in the description for my Patreon page. Sign up for that. It takes you 5 minutes. And you can read all about that, the benefits of doing that, and I'd really appreciate that. Other than that, tell everybody you know about the channel. Tell your wife, tell your sister, tell her to tell her sisters and her friends and their boyfriends. Tell your barber, tell your dentist, your general practitioner, doctor, your gynecologist, even if you're a woman. Shout it out from a mountaintop. Tattoo it on your forehead. But if you tattoo it on your forehead, make sure you tattoo it backwards so that when you look in the mirror, it reads correctly. So that's it. Thank you to everybody. It was a successful stream, except for the very beginning when YouTube did me dirty like they do sometimes. But anyway, we got through it, didn't we? We got through it, and everything's fine now. So I'll see if I can get that fixed before tonight, because I don't want any problems tonight. But other than that, everybody have a great day. Thanks for stopping in. Pigskin Pete checking out.